We have a huge blockbuster trade to discuss. Erik Karlsson from the Sharks has finally been traded, but this is now a 3-team trade involving 9 players and some picks. Salary retained. We'll discuss the whole deal coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a significant blockbuster trade to discuss and report on here today. This might be one of the biggest trades we've seen in recent history. We knew the Karlsson trade, when it finally went down, would be huge, and it's turned out to be, I think, even bigger than many of us even expected. I said with several players involved, draft picks, retained salary, the whole deal. So here is the breakdown. The Pittsburgh Penguins have acquired all-star defenseman Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks, and the Sharks are retaining $1.5 million per season for the remaining 4 years of his contract. So he's obviously, his average annual value is 11.5. So for cap purposes, he'll count against the cap for the Penguins at $10 million. That's not as much as many of us expected. I thought they were going to have to retain more than that, but the Penguins, through the 3-team deal here, were able to shed enough other money that they didn't need San Jose to pick up more of the tab here. Now, the Penguins also, in this trade, get players from Montreal as well. So San Jose, Pittsburgh, Montreal are the 3 teams. The Penguins also get Rem Pitlick from the Montreal Canadiens. He's proven to be a pretty speedy, versatile forward. I think he can help the Penguins out and certainly play a decent role. He's signed short term, not a lot of money as well. So that obviously helps out. They also get a 2026 third round pick from the Sharks, and they also get a prospect in Dylan Hemeluk from San Jose as well. So Pittsburgh ends up getting 3 assets from the Sharks, including the big one, Erik Karlsson, and then Rem Pitlick comes over from Montreal. Now, going to San Jose, they get the contract of Mikael Granlund. Of course, he was one of the prime buyout candidates here that we expected that Pittsburgh wanted to move on from. Granlund goes to the Sharks, though. He had 2 years left at $5 million. That's a huge help. They also get Mike Hoffman from Montreal. Of course, Hoffman, is we joked before, is a Sharks legend, because when Ottawa traded Mike Hoffman after the whole and it's also funny in a way just because he's involved in this Karlsson trade, because obviously those two ended up having major personal issues, which resulted in Hoffman leaving Ottawa, and he was traded to the Florida Panthers, but he went through San Jose. He ended up going to San Jose and then later being traded to Florida. Never actually played in the Sharks organization. So, of course, many joked that Hoffman was a Sharks legend, but now he's actually going to be a Shark for now. He's got 1 year left on his contract. So they take on the contract of Granlund and Hoffman. They also get defenseman Jan Rutta from Pittsburgh. It was long rumored that they were wanting Marcus Pettersson. Kyle Dubas didn't really want to include him and stuck to his guns here. So they get 3 roster players, Granlund, Hoffman, and Rutta, and a 2024 first-round pick from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the third team, as I mentioned here, is Montreal. So that was a lot to absorb here. Montreal gets Jeff Petry back. So the remaining contract for Jeff Petry will have 25% salary retention from Pittsburgh. So they hold back 25% of Petry and send him back to where he was before in Montreal. We know, obviously, a lot of familiarity there, but things also didn't really end on the greatest note. After Marty St. Louis came in, Petry did play a little better at the end of it, but you could just tell he wasn't engaged and wanted really a change. Now, we'll see how things work out this time around, or what's going to happen next. I don't know. Montreal also gets goaltender Casey DeSmith, which is interesting. So we knew that with the other additional goaltenders that Pittsburgh had signed in free agency, with Magnus Hellberg and Alex Nedeljkovic, that DeSmith likely was going after Jerry signed long-term. So not a huge surprise. I am surprised he goes to Montreal. We'll discuss that in a moment. And they also get young prospect forward Nathan Legare from Pittsburgh as well. So Montreal, all of their assets they end up with in this trade all come from the Penguins. So San Jose, ultimately here, they move on from Karlsson and obviously a 1 pick and 1 prospect. But in return, they get 3 roster players and a first rounder, and they don't retain a whole lot of money on Karlsson. Karlsson goes to Pittsburgh. They also get Rem Pitlick, who could be, like I said, a good utility player for them. Montreal obviously gets some pieces here as well, getting Petry back to Smith and Legare. Now, this is the only time Second time in NHL history that the reigning Norris Trophy winner has been traded immediately after winning the trophy before the next season started. The only other time it happened also involved Montreal, except it was a little bit more direct. It was a 2-team trade between Montreal and the Rangers where they traded Doug Harvey to New York in 1961. So that's how seldom this happens. Usually if you have the Norris Trophy winning defenseman, you don't want to move on from him, and obviously this is more of a Karlsson request than it is a San Jose issue, but at the end of the day, he was pushing hard to get out of San Jose. We knew Pittsburgh had been the front runner for a long time. Yesterday, we discussed the other possibility that if this could not happen, would Karlsson and the Sharks maybe look at terminating the contract? Because obviously, if he could re-sign for the remaining 4 years at a similar amount of money that he's owed from San Jose, which is actually $39 million in cash, less than $10 million a year, he could recoup that money and move on. Of course, San Jose would not get anything in return, but they would get even more cap space, and they wouldn't have to take on these deals that they probably don't want to. Ultimately, they get a first-round pick, but these other players are not going to be long-time Sharks, right? So we'll see how this goes. So that's the Blockbuster trade. I want to know your reactions. Give me your thoughts. I have to think as well in Montreal that another move is going to come. They have an abundance now of defensemen. They finally move a forward that they've been wanting to do for some time. They still have a bit of a glut at the forward position, but obviously that helps a bit. Now they have an extra D-man who they, roster-wise don't really need. I can see why they want maybe another veteran in the mix. I got to wonder what else that means for another defenseman maybe going. And goaltending-wise, they've got Jake Allen, Samuel Montembeault, Casey DeSmith, Caden Primo. Now we have a logjam at that position. I wouldn't think they'd be moving Montembeault. It seems like they were quite pleased with him. Does this mean anything for Jake? I wonder if Jake Allen could become a trade chip. Or are they gonna flip DeSmith to another team? Like something's gotta give here. We'll have to see where things go, but I suspect that we get some big answers on Karlsson, and now we get a few other questions on other areas to take a look at. So again, let me know your thoughts on this Blockbuster deal down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll be back with more analysis and, of course, all the news and rumors from around the entire NHL. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.